Hello everybody, and this is Chris from Curious of Mystery, and today we will be covering the 4th episode in the Core Philosophy series. Last episode we covered the square of opposition. We have now constructed what philosophy is in the first episode. We have also discussed common ground and the basis of argumentation in the square of opposition. Now that we have the building blocks of argumentation and understanding for the search of truth and wisdom, we are now ready to start constructing, or at least getting tools in our tool belts to construct some argumentation for our beliefs. So first off, we're going to be launching with fallacies. Now there's so many fallacies, I decided to make this a part 1 video because I may in the future release additional parts, and I'll make a separate playlist just for fallacies somewhere in my YouTube channel. These fallacies will be covered in my Philosophical Core series, but this coming Wednesday, which I will be covering the Epistemological series. It will be the very first episode of that series. So now, without further ado, let's dive right into fallacies. So the very first fallacy we will be covering today is the genetic fallacy. Now this one's actually pretty common, but some people may call it different things, but you can probably recognize it. So it's when somebody speaks or says something, and then another person says that that's not true, or that they can't speak that because they are not related, or they're alien to the topic. They don't have the right to speak about it. It's as if, because of how you were born or where you were raised, and that's why it's called genetic. So it's basically the person that follows this fallacy and says these types of things, they think for some reason that if a person is like a certain way, then they only can speak of certain things. So typically this goes if a person that maybe isn't a minority wants to speak on behalf of minority rights or advocate for it, then sometimes you'll see people being that, they'll state, well, you haven't witnessed it firsthand. You have not done this. You can't understand it. And that's not really true. That's not argumentation. You want to search for truth, right? So what truth are you planning on getting by attacking a person's character and stating that they can't understand? Because you're not speaking about, and a lot of the fallacies that we will be discussing today are like this. You're not discussing the actual argument or what's being said. You're not discussing truth value at all. All you're discussing is somebody not having the right to speak. You're trying to say, you cannot speak about this, you don't understand. And that doesn't argue for anything, but so many people do use it. And it's very important to understand, with the last 3 episodes that we have had, being what is philosophy and the square of opposition, common ground. If you review those episodes and you come back to the fallacy one and you look at these, you will notice how a lot of these do not search for truth, and they're not really valid ways to prove or find truth. With this one, it doesn't do anything for the argument, it only is attacking a person. Now our next one is a Strawman Fallacy. This one's really important, and it happens all the time in politics. It's called a Strawman Fallacy because somebody is constructing a fake mischaracterization of a person's beliefs, which is quote-unquote the straw man. Basically, let's say the actual person says so-and-so, but then a person B doesn't really pay attention to what that person says, and instead obviously shows that they're not listening and kind of mischaracterizes what they speak. So let's say I said all apples are red, referring to the square of opposition video. If you haven't watched it, the link's down in the description. And if I say all apples are red, and then you said, he said that no apples are red, or something that is close to what I spoke, but you take the words out of my mouth. And if I was using all apples are red as an example to explain the square of opposition, but then you use it and you mischaracterize me and say he thinks all apples are red, when I was just using it as an example, then you make it seem like I think that there are no green apples, yellow apples, or any other types of apples, which I know there are. So in this way, so many people kind of demoralize or they just destroy a person's integrity and character, and they're not talking about the argument or truth value. Yet again, they're not really trying to properly debate or communicate to find truth. All they're doing is being irresponsible people within thought and discourse. They're not being respectful. They're not having integrity. They're not being truth seekers. They're being closed-minded baboons. And beyond that, we have our next fallacy, which is ad populum. Ad populum happens pretty often. It even has a more modern nickname. But first, this is Latin, and it translated basically means to the people. So let's see, what's that modern translation or the modern word for this type of fallacy? Well, we tend to call it the bandwagon fallacy. Now, this one you probably have seen many times, or at one point or another, we all probably have followed it or done it accidentally or used it. And it basically means that a lot of people are saying that one thing is the way it is, and since so many people are saying it is the way it is, it must be true. Now, a lot of people would argue for this fallacy, saying that it's not a fallacy because, well, so many people think that it's true, which means it must have some truth behind it. Well, let's look at examples in the past where this has been the case. Let's see, slavery. There's also women not being able to vote or work. There's a lot of things, and when you start to break it down, like, so many bad things have happened. Even the Holocaust, and how Germany, like how a lot of Germans thought that it was okay, and a lot of them didn't know it completely. But there's a lot of issues with it. And just because a lot of people say something doesn't mean it's right. Because it wouldn't make sense if somebody said, an apple is an orange, and then you say an apple is an orange, all your friends say an apple is an orange, I get all of my friends to say an apple is orange, and eventually all the people in the world start to truthfully think that an apple is an orange. Does that actually make sense? Does that actually have any truth value? No. All it is finding you're not arguing for the truth value of something. You're assuming it. Oh, everybody thinks that this is the way it is, therefore it must be the way it is. You're using the belief of other people as the thing that proves that you're right. That's not the way to argue, because that's not actually arguing for the argument. You're just assuming a truth. And that's the very important thing. As you can see with the last three arguments, all of them are not focusing on the argument itself. They are finding other ways to dodge the argument, to mischaracterize the other person or get beliefs from other people and assume it. There's never that true argumentation that we've discussed in the first three episodes. So our next one is ad hominem. Now this one's also Latin, and you could probably see the familiarity. However, unlike ad populum being to the people, ad hominem is to the man. And man, of course, means man or woman. It just means individual, practically. So, let's say person A believes in X. Now, a person goes, how dare person A believe in X? Person A is a bad person, this. They are no longer focusing about what person A said. They're not arguing against X. All they're doing is attacking person A. Now, if you think of this is a very important distinction, because what is this doing? You're not paying attention to the argument. If person A is a bad person for believing in X, then you should disprove and show why X is bad. And if you do that, then person A may not believe in X. However, instead you'll attack person A about believing X and never show why, or disprove or stand against X, which means you're achieving nothing except attacking somebody. And this happens many times in politics as well. This person believes this, how dare they are a bad person, but you never prove why X is a bad thing to believe. Because when you speak and argue, you should never be speaking towards the person. You should be speaking towards the argument. So the genetic fallacy is against the person. Ad hominem is against the person. Strawman fallacy is against the person. All three of them aren't speaking of the actual argument. And ad populum, to the people, the bandwagon fallacy, it's not speaking to the person, but instead it's assuming truth because it's so popular that it must be true. And it's evading the whole point of arguing. It's just assuming a truth. So with these, we can see that these fallacies, even though they happen so much and they seem right kind of at the point, like if X is wrong, then isn't person A wrong for thinking X? Yeah, that's easy to see. But when we actually pay attention to it, it's not right. Because you don't know why person A believes in X. You don't know what they think of X. You're not arguing against X or proving your position against X. All you're doing is attacking person A. So you're not doing anything logical or rational. You're just attacking to attack, which isn't beneficial to anybody. And public discourse should be an area of seeking truth. It shouldn't be an area of mutual destruction, or havoc, or chaos. So the final fallacy that we will be covering today is hasty generalization. And this one happens pretty often, and it's kind of a combination of being against a person and proving that a thing is true off of assumption. It's kind of both. Because let's assume there's person B. Person B does Y. Now, person A sees person B do this, and they're like, wow, all people like person B must do Y. So, this is a hasty generalization. They see one situation, and they just assume that everybody's like that. That is like person B. So this is where you get your sexist, your any type of discrimination, like your racist, everybody that has some type of discriminatory nature. Typically, this is the argument. Either they'd say, well, I haven't seen it not be the case, or it's likely like that. Most people are like that are like B. And they'll say words like that, but they'll never accept. Usually, they will not say, oh, every person is like that. If you bring them down to that point, they won't go and be like, oh yeah, of course, every person's like that. No, they'll accept that some people can be different. But they will not drop the fact that a majority of people are like this, which that's the issue. Because if one person is able to be like that, then you're no longer dealing with an A statement like in the square of opposition. You're not dealing with all people are blank. You're now dealing with some people are blank, or you're dealing with some people are not blank. And if a hasty generalist or discriminatist, they state all person X is this. All you have to do to contradict it, if you remember the square of opposition, is prove that some of the people X are not blank. So all you have to do is show that somebody is not what they're saying, and then you contradict what they just said. And usually they'll then evade, and they'll run away from the statement they just made. And they'll say, yeah, but some of them are. And when you get that, they're no longer arguing over truth, proof, or anything. All they're doing is trying to just make a statement that defines and proves their own beliefs. And again, this is both an assumption and an attacking of person B's character. Because what does that prove? Nothing, really. Now, a hasty generalization is different than a survey, like census. If I do a survey through census, and I see that a large group of people may need assistance, which is part of the purpose of census, to see what governmental assistance should do and what should be the goal to rectify within the country. If you're not familiar with the US Census, it happens every 10 years or 4 years, it depends, and they do a huge survey across the entire country, and they decide, it happens every 10 years, not 4 years, but they decide basically which regions and which states have certain types of maybe suffering. You lay out all your information, and it allows the government or whichever company or organization that's going to use the data, and the data is open to everybody to see. It's always open. It helps with so many different types of sociological studies and so many different types of organizations in helping the community. So it's very important. But that type of data is not a hasty generalization, because its aim is to find a truth within this situation in society. It doesn't show or state that all people are this. It just gets information for the goal to rectify any injustice or anything, and to improve situations. So now, I will be starting my epistemological series this Wednesday that's coming up. It will be released also around 12:15 p.m. and that's going to be for Pacific time. Now it's going to be released 3:15 for Eastern time. Beyond that, we have covered the genetic fallacy. We have covered the ad hominem, ad populum. We've also covered the Strawman Fallacy, and then we finally covered the hasty generalization. If you feel that you want that maybe any of these fallacies are not that clear, then just write down what they really mean and then watch the What is Philosophy video to really understand what the point of philosophy is, because this is the mindset you have to take when arguing. And then look at the common ground, which is the foundation that you're going to build before argument. And then the square of opposition, which is the kind of process of which you're going to use to argue. Now, with these 3 episodes in correlation with this 4th one, you'll be able to understand and dissect a lot of arguments, and you may even notice that 1 or 2 things that you notice around the world or in your community throughout the next couple days. I challenge you to probably look out for these fallacies. See how many times you can hear them or notice them or pick them up on them. And if you have any interesting stories or interesting moments where you picked up on a fallacy and it surprised you because it's never something you noticed before, then leave it down in the comment section below. If you've watched this entire video and you enjoyed it, then like, comment, subscribe, or even hit that notification bell to be notified for my next upcoming videos. Well, as always, feel free to leave something in the comment and I will get back to you as soon as possible. And thank you for watching my videos. Stay curious in the mystery, and as always, Chris is signing off.